gentlemen, and whatever Dorf is, you have joined us for the Empire in Exile, episode number 29. Tonight, we're going to have some fun. We're going to talk about time travel. Now, I know, neither Dorf nor I are astrophysicists or, scientists or whatever you should be to talk intelligently about time travel. We're going to have some fun. We're going to philosophize a little bit about time travel, what it is, whether we believe in it, whether we should believe in it, all those different things. But let's get to it. How you doing, Dorf? Banned from YouTube.
I am doing not too bad. We did take last week off, and our episode before that was we have joined the club. We have officially had a episode removed, and unfortunately, it was purged and deleted out of the back end, or I did something wrong after the.
Wu-Tang is for the children. Empire in Exile is for the children
locally,
too.
So we lost it.
That is
we're like the one.
That is a fact.
Congratulations, you own like the what was it, the Wu-Tang Clan album that they only made one of?
Really?
I think actually. So Farmer Bro.
There was a guy I went to high school with who passed away.
Album. I think lost it when he
was very young for some in some very strange and weird circumstances. But he was a rapper that a lot of us in high school used to go see, and we were trying to find some more copies of Al Dog, As Dirty as I Wanna Be, a few years ago. And as it seems, despite asking many people from our high school, it would seem that my brother-in-law owns the only cassette, the only cassette copy. Yeah. Oh, cassette. Oh, yeah, cassette. It would seem as if my brother-in-law is the only man left alive who owns a copy of Al Dog, As Dirty as I Wanna Be.
Deteriorating medium too. Ooh.
But maybe there's another one out there. So if you're out there and you're listening to this, contact us. You have a bit of musical gold on your hands. So Dorf, let's start this way. Let's start it off this way. Because I want to ask now at the very beginning, and maybe towards the end, maybe you or I'll change each other's minds here a little bit. Or as we get to talking, we'll have some revelations. But at the very beginning of the show, time travel, leaning towards yes, it's possible, leaning towards no.
My understanding of the theoretical physics behind it is that it is something achievable. Actually, I messed with my microphone settings in the pre-show, and now it's not acting the way it was earlier. But anyway, the theoretical physics behind it, I understand the ability that what that leads to. I do see that as a possibility. What I'm not seeing is the evidence that it would ever be achievable with humans. So the idea of the one thing that can really affect the linear flow of time is a large enough force of gravity is, okay, I may be butchering this, I'm not an expert on it. That's my understanding.
No, but you're quoting Einstein here, though. That's good. You're on the
well, and there's plenty of others that have built work, but so large enough application of gravity, you can alter time. I don't know that you can reverse it. So the reason that, as one of our bullet topics is you haven't seen any time travelers is we aren't advanced enough yet to go backwards from our current point, but we could it's very, if you want to.
And you're referencing to. I'm sorry. I just mean to jump in for a second, but you're referencing the weight of gravity, the weight of gravity
Which you see
being able to weigh down on space time, which is what Einstein spoke of.
Directly observable now.
In essence,
but the functional, or what you would think from a science fiction perspective is time travel, we're not. It's not achievable yet. You see some items like I'm call it weight. So gravity, the weak gravitational force, which for all intents and functional purposes, for those who live 99.9% of their life at sea level, or it's the same thing. So that you can start manipulating mass and propelling things by a mass reduction instead of having to apply a force to it. So when you do that, you can potentially also start playing off time dilation of gravity much easier and much more functionally, which would make time travel possible. So you could have folks, in the functional way you'll see that in our lifetime would be somebody being able to survive a human lifetime to travel into deep space and leave our solar system. You're not going to see somebody go back in time and influence historical events. I understand it's theoretically critical physics. You could do it. I just don't know where you're going to get a large enough gravitational force to affect time.
See, I am one of these people that, although I love the topic of time travel, I think it's fun. I think it's fascinating. And it was my idea to do this show tonight, but I much more lean towards no. It's impossible. I'm supposed to be the resident tinfoil hat wearer here, who believes in all the crazy stuff, but I don't believe time travel is possible. And it sounds like a simple idea, what you mentioned, Dorf, and what the title of the show is that if time travel exists, then where are all the time travelers? And by saying that, I simply ask that question because if it ever exists, I mean, you're talking about time here. Einstein said time was the fourth dimension. If you're talking that time travel can exist, then it exists everywhere. It exists all over the place. So to point out that where are all the time travelers, either civilization will die out before we can figure it out, or it's impossible because they would be here. They'd be coming back. We would have evidence of time travelers popping in. Yeah, they pop in because we can't do it, but us in the future can. So where are they?
You'd see them by now. Because, well, to add to your point, Josh, if travel in the way you understand it or your way you're explaining that is ever achievable, it would be achievable already. Because if you've got it at one point and you can use it to move backwards, then you have it now, or in prior time than now, you have it already.
Sure, and that's like because if it exists at some point, then people would want to go see dinosaurs. People would want to come influence events. It'd be huge.
Time travel tourism would be the best thing ever. And then you'd have the Bill Gatesian types who'd be like, I'm gonna go save the world, and go back in time and I'm gonna kill baby Hitler. Well, I hate to break it to you, baby Goebbels is probably the one you need. So get him first, because if it's not him, he
sure, and Gearing,
Joseph Goebbels,
Gearing too.
Need to really be worried about, but
the thing is with this, Dorf, is that okay? So we're talking. Okay, so say, well, it's in the future, but only the government controls it, and they're really stingy about it. But eventually, it gets to a point where it's just easy. Eventually it does, and somebody's going to be the renegade, and do it. Now, there are other instances for that. You could say, maybe there's time travelers coming back all the time, and they're constantly changing things, and we just don't know. Like it's resetting constantly. Everything's resetting all the time, and we just don't even realize that as of yesterday in this timeline, you and I never met each other, Dorf. But it just seems like we do now because it was reset, and then everything changed. Because somebody went back in time to 1978 and changed a bunch of stuff. I don't buy that. I'm just saying that it's I'm throwing stuff out for the sake argument here. Now, there's several paradoxes, and this is another thing that bothers me. I was going to do the grandfather paradox first, but instead we'll do you mentioned killing baby Hitler. Okay, what I call, some people would call this the self-consisting principle, I think is, I didn't make that up. So, somebody I'm just calling it the kill Hitler paradox, right? Everybody wants to go back in time and kill baby Hitler because he's evil and he sucks. But if you go back in time and kill Hitler when he's a baby and then jump back to your own time and it worked, there's no longer a reason for you to go back and do it. Hitler died in 1925 under this scenario, or 19, whatever, it doesn't matter when you kill him, but so you go back to 1925, you kill Corporal Adolf Hitler, and he's dead. Now you're back. You never knew. 1925, I want to say he's in jail, isn't he? Because he's already served in World War I as a corporal. Yeah, he's corporal in World War I. So that ends in 1918. Then he's back. Is he back in Austria? Is he in jail yet? I'm not sure. I don't know the exact time on it. I probably should, but I don't. So he's roughly 25 years old at that point. Yeah, he's late teen, early 20s in 1918. So actually he's probably closer to like 30 in 1925. But if you do that, now there's no longer a reason to go back and kill Hitler. So how do you know to go back and kill Hitler when it's 2021, I'm going back in time to kill Hitler. How did you know in 2020 that Hitler was bad? You didn't, because he died. 1889, okay. Okay. I said 25 or 30, okay. 1889? Okay, so he'd be 36.
By the way.
Right on. All right, supposedly. We could do a whole show on whether or not Hitler died then.
He was born in 1889, by the way. So he'd be his mid-30s in 1925.
Exactly. Yes. I would love to do that show at some point, but I don't want to get sidetracked. So that's a paradox in and of itself. But the most popular paradox that people talk about when discussing time travel is the grandfather paradox.
Whether or not
if you go back in time and kill your grandfather, how could you go back in time to kill your grandfather? Because you were never born. And this is the paradox, some people say it more nicely and say you go back in time and accidentally kill your grandfather. It doesn't matter if you did it on accident or did it on purpose. I don't know why you'd go back in time and kill your grandfather on purpose, but if you could go back in time, then you could go back in time and kill your grandfather. And if you went back in time and killed your grandfather, you would never be born. So this is the ultimate paradox. Now you can say the only explanation for that is the universe won't let you. You know, that you know, no matter what happens, you won't. You know, you'll go to shoot your grandpa in the head and you'll trip over a twig and accidentally blow your own head off. You know, it's whatever it may be. Or the only other, I guess I shouldn't have said the only explanation, but one explanation is that I guess another explanation is when you get very deeply into the multiverse idea. That, you know, then you've, right. So then, in essence, I guess you've destroyed a universe. But it's just one of, you know.
Oh, yeah. Or
incalculable millions of universes. Yeah. So it's all done, but it still doesn't work because how did you do it? How did you come back? You know, so you can try to dispel it with the multiverse theory, but not really. And because again, the more simpler, the simpler explanation, which still doesn't make a whole lot of sense, is the idea that the universe just won't let you do it. It won't let you undo yourself. Now, one of the things a while ago that made me want to do this show was, I know you're not a big movie guy. You see Avengers Endgame, Dorf? Okay, good. I thought you did. But I like in that...
I did.
Right on.
I have seen.
Very cool.
I have seen most of the modern Marvel.
I like it in that movie. They poke fun at the Hollywood. You know, they're a Hollywood movie doing time travel, but they poke fun at other Hollywood movies doing time travel. So that is, I thought it did actually raise a legitimate question. Which one? And of course, the answer could be none of them, but that's not the fun answer. But which one of all these great time travel movies or great time travel books makes the most sense? Which one does bring out the idea of what would it be? Would it be like Back to the Future, where you're going back and you are then altering the history of yourself? And, you know, there's the you from 1985 in that case. I know, you know, the you from 1985 and your parents from 1955 and going back and forth into all this.
To be
good one
honest,
too.
The most recent time travel movie I've watched outside of Endgame is Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. The fiance was a big fan of Ted, made me watch it first time last year, and I don't get it, but anyway,
I'm a big Wayne's World fan. I recall liking Bill and Ted, but to be perfectly honest, I think I was in middle school the last time I saw it, so I couldn't speak to it too much. But if you look at Back to the Future, if you look at the way they do it in Avengers Endgame, or if you look at like the Terminator. All very different ideas of what time travel would be. I mean, I guess Terminator kind of looks at it as a method of ever changing. It basically, well, I mean, Einstein said it was the fourth dimension. Terminator kind of does look at it like that fourth dimension. It's just another spot to be fighting their war in. You know, they're fighting their war in the past, present, future, and in between. You know, they're just it's a constantly ever changing scenario, but kind of with the same underlying ideas. Avengers kind of shows you that no, that's not what it would be like, because go back, if you go back in time, then now that's not your past, that's your future, because you did it afterwards. So which one would it be? But it's still the past, but it was never your past. But you can't change. You were still there. You were there in the future doing those things. So that past must have already happened. So that new past, that's somebody else's past. It's a different past, and now you're changing it not for you, but for someone else. So I guess it's more of a multiverse idea, if you will. They don't call it that. Well, maybe they do call it that. I don't have the script in front of me, but I don't know which of those sounds the least insane to you, Dorf. All these different, ideas of what it is to be a time. Cheers. I guess I did. I guess this thing picks up more than I thought. It's a good microphone. Bought for me by Dorf. Thank you, sir. Welcome. I actually haven't.
I mean, it's be a time travel. So, I'm gonna kind of stick to the way I explained it and what roughly my guess for Matthew McConaughey at current age, um, to see his daughter again, who's like 105. So, relative to assuming Earth is your frame of reference, she aged at a constant rate. She was like 12 when he left. So, 100 years had passed, but he had hardly gotten any older. So that would be my prediction that could be the most accurate. Give you that insanely large gravitational field necessary to affect time.
Mm-hmm.
It slowed it down relative to Earth, and outside of the being able to influence the possible fourth and fifth dimension to communicate across across great distances. That outside of that, which I don't understand. I can't.
Very cool. No, and this is the idea that requires light speed travel, right, or faster than light speed travel.
That would be my pick for the one that I think gets it the closest to.
Okay.
No, it actually doesn't. It actually just requires wormholes to exist. So they at traditional using well, it's in the future. So rocket propulsion. It's just use rocket propulsion. Um, but it also
That's fine.
there's cryos involved in it too. Um, it'll be a thing. So the way that it's explained, but to the folks on camera, Josh, you may be in a different the way that it's explained in the movie is so if your time is here or in space is here, this piece of paper that you see, a wormhole. How do you from point A to point B? To point A to point B is a straight line, right? So just across the paper. Well, a wormhole just takes your paper, that being your distance, and folds it in half. So how you get from point A to point B, they're now right on top of each other. That's the theoretical concept of a wormhole observed. That's how it works. So that's what they're using to cover that great distance beyond our galaxy is that wormhole, where there's that cut, that space-time is folded in half, essentially. The math on that the math or our understanding of physics allows for a wormhole to exist. We just never have observed one. So in the movie, it just appears just beyond the orbit of Jupiter. I threw it, find another place for that potentially humanity could settle. It all goes wrong, but humanity still lives on because they end up moving into a space station that orbits Saturn. I forget which, but either way,
This is
the idea is to take a bunch of fertilize another planet in a far off solar system. Instead of finding a place to evacuate everybody, that's what the goal of the project is.
Hey, you are referring to in the Dune books, which supposedly a Dune movie is or another Dune movie is coming out soon. But yeah, it folds space. To fold space, can for those of you nerds out there, we're talking to the internet, so I know there's plenty of Dune nerds out there who are know the Dune book. Yeah, no, great book series, of course. Well, the movie's terrible. The '80s movie is a mockery of everything, but the books are fantastic. Right, but at least, yeah. Right, no, that's what I was gonna say. At least in the case of Starship Troopers, the movie, yeah, I love. That's one of my favorite books. I'm a huge Robert Heinlein fan, but the movie is nothing like the book. But the movie's still entertaining. At least it's cool, it's fun. I think you get to see some nice boobs in it, as I recall, and they blow up a lot of bugs, and it's pretty cool. But the Dune movie's basically unwatchable. I mean, it's garbage. But yeah, I mean, but Robert Heinlein and Frank Herbert, two of my favorite authors, they definitely delve into these subjects. Very interesting, very very brilliant guys, really. I mean, storytellers, yes, amazing storytellers, but brilliant science and science fiction minds as well. So I guess that brings us to, we've touched on parallel universes. We touched on the, different potential methods of time travel, wormholes, things like that. On our lost episode on our lost episode, I'll just say that. I don't want to say anything, get this one banned too. But on our lost episode, we mentioned that we wanted to potentially in the future do a show on Fermi's paradox and the Drake equation. Now, if you put time, yeah, oh, for sure, I'd love to. But if you put time travel into that mix, it actually makes both of those ideas, it takes them off the charts. that's not even factored into the Drake equation that time travel is possible. But if time travel is possible, then the Drake equation just multiplies exponentially, and Fermi's paradox then becomes a major paradox, which leads back to my initial point of where the hell are all the time travelers? Because it's just, where are all the aliens, where are all the time travelers, where are all the time traveling aliens, if these things are true? Because now you've taken the millions that supposedly should exist through the Drake equation, and now it's millions from every year of all time, basically, should be here at some point.
I have never read it. So.
Another one that would be a fun show to do at some point. I would need to do more research on this one. I don't know where you're at on it, Dorf, but is CERN. Yeah, but CERN would be a fun show to do, and there are whispers of a lot of crazy things going on at CERN, opening up portals to hell, and weather experiments. Well, that would probably be some of the tamer things that you'd say about CERN is, the weather experiments that we certainly know they have definitely done. But people wonder if CERN is toying with this idea of time travel. And I'm making all these wild assumptions about, well, if time travel was happening, this and this and this would happen. But as we stated at the top of the show, I don't know. Maybe they're just constantly changing everything. We don't know it, because it's just constantly being pumped into our heads, and it's ever moving from one side to the other. So I don't know. Switching gears here a little bit. Dorf, are you familiar with the John Titor thing at all? The kind of the crazy thing with John Titor was a guy who showed up on internet message boards in 2001, I believe. This guy claiming he was John Titor.
No, I'm not.
And he said he was a time traveler. He said he was from 2036, and that the big American Civil War in his time was going to start in 2004, and that then the riots, and the way he put it was a Waco event happening once a month, would then eventually culminate in the United States crumbling in 2015, but he was trying to fix that. He was back in time trying to fix that. And of course, people think, okay, this, I don't know if we were using the word troll yet in 2001 on the internet. Probably not. Maybe not. But people were saying, oh, come on, this guy's, well, I don't know. The old Weird Al Yankovic song mentions trolls even back then. So,
well, I don't current use. No,
I don't read spam and I don't feed trolls. All about the Pentiums. Oh, all about the Pentiums. Classic. Parody of All About the Benjamins. All About the Benjamins.
I don't remember that one.
Oh, that is a classic. That's a classic song. YouTube that one later.
What's that a parody of?
Because unlike us, Weird Al's still on YouTube.
If Weird Al was a younger child, and I can't remember that one.
But 2001, this guy John Titor is around. He's saying all this stuff. Most people are saying it's nuts. He claims, like I said, he's from 2036. He's got to try to fix this, although he can't really fix it because, according to him, all the different John Titors are going back, and if maybe a few of them will actually succeed in their own multiverse. And what he claims is that he's there in 2001 to get an IBM 5100 computer from 1975. to okay to get this piece of a computer, and he's trying to pick this thing up.
Yeah.
He says that there was this piece in it, this part in this computer that basically made it so it would read BASIC. You know me, Dorf, I'm not a computer guy, but this piece that was intended to read BASIC and it didn't work, so then they took it out shortly after its first release, but that he needed this piece so he could basically do something in 2036. Stupid guy messing with everybody, right? I mean, sounds ridiculous, probably is ridiculous. But what was kind of weird about it was that, he said, okay, I got my IBM 5100. I'm going to jump back to 2036 now. Wish me luck. This is it. No one ever heard from him again. The weird part is that information later was revealed. And it was true. Nobody knew that at the time, that these 1975 computers had this piece that read BASIC. And one of the old IBM bigwigs kind of came out and said, this is basically a quote, but I am paraphrasing. I don't have it in front of me. He basically came out and said, listen, I have no idea if this guy's a time traveler, but what he said is true. And there was literally maybe 20 people that knew that. Maybe 20 of us. Ever knew that fact. Now, maybe he was just some uber nerd who had one of those already and dissected the hell out of it. Probably a better scenario, right? Than he's a time traveler from 2036.
More likely possibility,
right?
Yeah. More like possibility, yeah.
But they're mixing this with a few other things, and it's really a pretty curious situation. He knew a whole bunch of information that he really shouldn't have known, whoever he was. Or hell, maybe he was one of those 20 people, and he was trolling everybody.
Is Shakespeare a time traveler, or is Shakespeare a collective of writers who all run under one pen?
Yeah,
because he knew way too much about other places he had never been to.
Right. Yeah, and he was a low IQ, a low IQ, low level actor at the time. No, I know a lot of people think he was Francis Bacon, was Shakespeare. A lot of people believe Sir Francis Bacon. The Shakespeare Society vehemently disagrees with that and says, how elitist can you be to say that, God forbid, this low level playwright was just good at what he did? Just talked to people and had a way with words, and just because he didn't go to high colleges or big colleges and have have a bunch of money and stuff, that doesn't mean that he couldn't be a good playwright. But no, that'd be a great show. Actually, back in the day on the Empire Media, on the XCast, on Deep Issues, I believe we did a show on Shakespeare, or at least touched on it here and there. Be fun to do that again. This John Titor guy, though, he then mapped out a schematic. Well, way over my head, above my pay grade. He mapped out the schematic and he showed a picture of his time machine, which was this kind of just clunky looking thing, supposedly. And he mapped out a schematic of the computer that he used to do it. And again, strangely enough, it was right. when they've had top people analyze it, it was his dude's schematic was it was spot on. And again, probably just a smart dude with too much time on his hands. But kind of interesting, kind of curious, this whole John Titor thing. Now, to make it even crazier, there are people that believe that John Titor was actually none other than Donald J. Trump. Have you heard this at all about the It could be, but if you heard anything at all about the Donald Trump time traveling thing? Well, I mean, okay. Do you when Tesla died, when Tesla died, Nikola Tesla, when Nikola Tesla died, um, they sent in a top aide from MIT to take all of his research personally, take all of his research and take it and study it in hopes the US government was hoping that it could potentially be weaponized. But that person that they sent to research it happened to be none other than MIT superstar John Trump, the paternal uncle of Donald Trump. And some believe that he potentially gained control of. He was definitely a brilliant man, that he gained control of some of these time traveling capabilities and passed them on to his beloved nephew, Donald Trump. Crazy theory, yes. I'm just throwing it out. There are people out there talking about this. And are you familiar with the bear? All things I believe. No, but if you, I bring this up to, to jest a little bit, but also it is very kind of eerie and weird. Have you ever seen the Baron Trump books? The books written, there's some books written in between 1890 and 1900. Baron Trump and his marvelous underground journey, Baron Trump and his little wonderful dog Bulger, and then Baron Trump appears in one more book by that author called The Last President. Those books were written between the 1890 and 1900. They're children's books. And it's about a young boy named Baron Trump who's time traveling, bouncing around to different areas, fixing things, up to and including the last president of the United States, who comes about after the country is extremely polarized and nobody can get along. So the last president dismisses everything. Weird stuff, right? Weird stuff. In 1958, there was a show. I wrote it down here because I couldn't remember it. 1958, there was an episode of the show Track Down. Is that it?
If true, wild.
Where is it? Shit, I hope I'm not saying that right because I thought I wrote it down, but I didn't. But I believe the show was called Track Down. It's a show about a Texas Ranger who, traveled the Old West. And in that episode of that show, there is a crazy time traveler who comes and visits the old Western town and tells them that their town is going to blow up that night unless you let him take over, and he will build a wall around the town and save the town from what is going to destroy them if the wall doesn't protect them. That character's name was Trump. Probably just a coincidence. Most likely just a coincidence, but very strange that in 1958 there was this. What a weird. That is weird though, right? That there was this.
I would hope so. If the character's name was something like Snuffleupagus or something like that, and it appeared in all these different places, I'd give it more credence. But
it's just I agree. And as someone who always says I do not believe in coincidences, this I do admit it's much more likely a coincidence. than
I think this
anything
is
else.
likely a
But
happy
it is
coincidence.
weird to see a character named Trump, who is this snake oil salesman who comes into town and convinces the people that they have to build a wall or else, and that he's the only one that can do it. Um, very strange. I actually watched the episode from this show I'd never heard of. Um, it was interesting. So between that, last president, Barron Trump, and his marvelous underground journey. Um,
Interesting.
the Simpsons predicting Donald Trump would be president. Kurt Cobain predicting Donald Trump would be president. Richard Nixon predicting that Donald Trump would be president. Now maybe they're just all smart and just saw the writing on the wall that Donald Trump would be president, and they were right. But it's kind of a weird grouping of things to predict such a thing, if you think about it. Nixon predicted it, I want to say, in around 85, early to mid 80s. Cobain predicted it in 93. And The Simpsons had a couple of things predicting Trump as president, as I recall. And also the first female president preceding him. In The Simpsons, it was Lisa Simpson. But just kind of just some different things. If people want kind of a fun, weird rabbit hole to go down, maybe I just opened one up for you. Maybe you think it's ridiculous, and there's a good chance you're right. Very good chance you're right. But some of the stuff was weird, and I don't necessarily buy into this, but some people point out just the idea that, Donald Trump, it just seemed like, how could this guy possibly win the presidency? How he comes out of nowhere and challenges the two biggest political families, the Bushes and the Clintons, that have existed in decades, and he beats them both, and he makes gestures that make fun of retarded people, and he tells people he likes to grab women by the pussy, and somehow he still manages to do it. Just kind of weird. That, again, I am not endorsing this theory. I do not think Donald Trump was a time traveler. I already told you I don't even believe in time travel. But still something worth checking out, I think. Worth having some fun with, if nothing else. Could be a fun rabbit hole for somebody to go down. Another one, I barely have any information on this, but you ever seen the picture of the time traveling hipster?
No.
You can just Google that one, Dor, if you ever seen that one. Oh, that's kind of a weird one. Just an old picture from I don't know when, old black and white picture, and there's this guy that looks like he's like just dressed in clothes from like the 90s. It's just kind of a weird picture. There's a couple other weird pictures like that of Civil War era. There's one with a little kid kind of sitting there that just looks extremely out of place. Interesting things to look into. But final question, I guess, Dorf. If time travel did exist, I'm giving you the DeLorean right now. I'm tossing you the keys to the DeLorean. What would you do? Nothing? Wow, all right. Good man. Good man. I'm gonna do all kinds of shit. I'm gonna go see dinosaurs. I'm gonna go meet Moses. I'm gonna go way into the future. I'm gonna mess some stuff up in there. I'm gonna have some fun. Um yeah, I'm gonna mess around. I'll go kill Hitler just for the lulz. See what it does. Yeah, bring a newspaper with you. It's like, that'd be rad. Just so you just roll like right before the Library of Alexander, right before it starts. You just roll there with like a modern day fire extinguisher, and just. Very cool. Very cool. You know what? I forgot something though when it comes to the. That'd be cool too. You know, Dorf, that's another potential show I'd love to do is the idea of alternate history as as someone who that's my gig is to be a historian. I love I love real history and real history and the things surrounding it, primary sources, true research. I love that, but I'm actually very fascinated with the ideas of alternate history as well. Some of these some of these things that people say are they're very fascinating, and some of them have just as much potentiality for legitimacy as some of what we believe. Many of the things that we write off as complete bunk and that's fake, the historians don't believe that, actually has far more evidence for it than, as you put, the Battle of Thermopylae. you know? Right. Well, and I like that movie and I like the graphic novel that it was based off of. But the one thing I thought was extremely dumb. Yeah, no, it's an entertaining movie.
We made a movie.
I just did.
And romanticized a romantic picture that was passed down in Greek propaganda.
The and again, I wasn't there. I can't verify that how it happened, but
it's entertaining.
The actual story movie that the Greeks passed down
they lost
was way cooler than that movie.
Wasn't as glorious.
Yeah, it really was. Like, yeah, there was no demons and weird stuff. Like, the actual story was way cooler, man. Like, just, and I can see where advanced fighting tactics and superior training could do this. This is like me and you, and you got it in on this. You used to play collegiate football. You call up a bunch of your buddies.
Oh yeah.
You get like 2,000 of them. They're like, all right, we got to try to get through the defensive line of I don't know, the Seahawks. Like, we'll eventually do it, but like, how many of us are going to get knocked out of bounds before we do? A whole bunch of us.
Yeah. 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 Numbers.
Right.
Attrition and numbers will eventually, as the Soviets proved in World War II, it's the MG4 have to barrel change or reload sometime. numbers will ultimately overcome skill in most warfare scenarios. Outside of very specific things, or supreme air power, eventually. But yeah, it's. I mean, you even look at like the dramatization of the Marcus Latory, the lone survivor, where Mark Wahlberg, who's all of like 5'7" or 5'8", plays like Marcus Luttrell, who's like 6'5". It's hilarious.
Yeah, no, I know that is and I like those movies, but he's a terrible example. And by the way, Tom Cruise claims he is 5'6".
Jack Reed,
most reports say that, he's with hella lifts in his shoes. He's 5'6". So we'll see about that. I actually heard somebody on the radio a few years ago saying I was standing next to him as an extra on one of Mission Impossible 17 or whatever. And she was like, I'm 5'5" and I swear I was taller. Like she was like invisibly taller, like visibly tall. But actors are notoriously short though. Yeah. A lot of actors are short. One thing I want to throw in that I left out before we can wrap this up if you want, Dorf. But another thing with the crazy, and I know it's crazy, Donald Trump theory is in the Back to the Future movies that say that the character of the time traveling Biff is so many believe is so very much based on Donald Trump. This Biff character.
I watched the original Back to the Future like once. Like
I watched that. One of the reasons that this topic was in my head was I watched this with my kids. I watched Back to the Future last week, and it had been a minute since I had seen it, and I actually had the thought as I was watching it with, a 15-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 6-year-old. I was thinking, this might very well be the best movie ever made. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but I was like, wow, this is like really a movie that out there. So if you haven't seen Back to the Future in a minute, it actually does stand the test of the time, pardon the pun, and you should check that out. But that's all I got for you tonight, Dorf. So if you want to take us out, or if you had something else to add, either one is fine with me.
No, I really don't. And you know what? I've already hit our music and not redoing it. So anyway, thanks for joining us here on this 29th episode. Yes, if you're counting, 28 is forever going to live as a lost episode. So episode 29 here, that's going to wrap it up. All right, see you all next time.